He is a Phoenix director and the president and CEO of PowerNet Systems Inc. Mr. Antonio Ramon Ongsiaco.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Sustainability Forum organized by the Environment Committee of the Phoenix Foundation. This is the fourth Sustainability Forum, and this year the theme is about solar, titled Solar Evolution: Generate, Conserve, Contribute. The use of solar power is very environmentally friendly, and with solar we can help reduce greenhouse gases and of course lower our energy costs. Our distinguished guests from the regular rooftop solar installers, developers, a bank, and different type of customers will dig deep into this. They will discuss and provide information on why putting up solar panels in our own homes and business establishments are beneficial and how it can make us self-sufficient. In fact, I know of a friend of mine who just recently finished his house in Greenfields in Calamba, and he installed his whole roof is with solar tiles, and he's totally off the grid except for his water. I don't think Ayala likes that too much. Nor Meralco. How it can make us self-sufficient like him, no? Our special thanks to the One Meralco Foundation for making this event possible. Sorry, Meralco. And to formally start this event, may I call Phoenix Environmental Vice Chair Erwin Abante. Erwin is CFO of the Energy Development Corporation. Erwin?
Thank you, thank you, Tony Boy, for that introduction. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to today's forum entitled Solar Evolution: Generate, Conserve, and Contribute. This is organized by Phoenix under the Environment Committee. It's good to see all of you face to face. Rooftop solar has been gaining popularity first because of price panels have been lower from several years back, allowing investors to recognize a reasonable payback period. The government is closely involved as it ensures that clear pricing, methodologies, and standards are set. And there's growing awareness as to how rooftop solar system can allow us to contribute in our own little way, making the world a better place to live. For today's session, we are joined by experts from different players of the solar industry space. To provide us with the necessary information and guidance, we have representatives from the government, from the Solar Association, solar rooftop provider, financing facility provider, distribution utility, as well as customers who are willing to share their experiences. Before I go, I just want to again acknowledge the Environment Committee, the Secretariat of Phoenix, the Phoenix Foundation, and Phoenix itself for making this event possible. We hope you will be able to make a lot of insights from today's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Erwin. Can I call now on our Phoenix Foundation chairperson, Mike Quarry, to give his message.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Past President Jeng, and on behalf of the rest of the trustees of Phoenix Foundation, I'd like to welcome all of you to our seminar, to our event this morning. We definitely look forward to making this a very robust and information-rich session. For the speakers, I'll keep this very short. We have a lot of speakers to learn from. So in terms of level of interest, the members of Phoenix, it will be a mix of business executives, potentially exploring how this can be rolled out in their respective companies, buildings, commercial establishments, and or, as mentioned by TB, Tony Boy earlier, even on a personal basis. So feel free to have those discussions. but nonetheless, again, we wanted to share some information on the role, right, of ENU, Energy and Utilities, in achieving net zero community. So I was glossing through some material. So there are nice plugged in, no? Depending on which organization. So my day job, I'm with KPMG. So, but I'm sure, depending on which service provider, audit firm, or consultant that you work with, there will always be a rich base of database and or information. So just to mention, almost 3/4 of global greenhouse gas emissions are attributed to energy consumption. So including electricity, heating, and transportation. The role of energy organizations, that's where we will couch, no, our experts this morning. The role of energy organizations in combating climate change and implementing decarbonization is growing. So definitely you have a big role and a major role to play, not just here in the Philippines, but around the world. Through your work, you can help organizations, the executives here, and communities achieve net zero emissions and decarbonize the operations in general. So, and then, so specific to the role of ENU, there. So, our road to net zero emissions, it runs through cities and communities. I think all of us can relate to that. And more than half of us live in urban locations, urban, suburban, a proportion that is expected to increase to 67% by 2050. So it really seems like megatrends are working against our intention of reaching a net zero when more proportion of the community that contributes to greenhouse to carbonization is increasing to their in terms of their mix. No? So while communities only occupy on a global basis 3% of the Earth's land area, they produce more than 3/4 of greenhouse gas emissions and use more than 3/4 of natural resources. So it will always be a nationwide effort, and we're very happy to welcome the people, the leaders that are fighting greenhouse gas and carbonization. And then, so since most of us here are business people, investors, on to the next slide. I wanted to share some, considerations. So, what are the 5 Ds for infrastructure investors? So, decision making. No? The regulators or cities and communities should try to streamline and accelerate the feasibility stages of projects, such as through digital twin technology, to allow investors to understand their projects better, allowing them to make decisions more quickly and on a budget. And for the business people here, I'm sure there's always a constant need for new investors and having the need to explain to a new batch of investors and investment committees. No? So definitely that's one. What it takes to expedite the decision-making process. So that's one item that we should be considering. And then number 2, risks. So de-risking. Risks play a significant role in any investment decision. So by creating small-scale demonstrable projects that demonstrate that concepts can be implemented, these costs can be identified, and then the attempts to reduce those costs can be made faster, no? Thus increasing the likelihood of an investment. So number 2 would be de-risking. Number 3 would be distribution. So it is also possible to reduce the risks associated with individual projects by sharing them, either through a wider investor base or having a stronger alliance among service providers that provide same level and same type of work. And number 4 would be data. Again, we cannot do away with that. Data intelligence will always be on top of an investor's mind. No? So data. So in addition to providing investors with more evidence to help them make informed decisions, cities and communities should also collect and share data on projects openly. So the more that, I mean, putting it into the Philippine context, to the extent that we know the specific communities and locations where there's a higher need, for, let's say, solar rooftop, or even for commercial, industrial use, and even residential, definitely that can further guide, companies in making the right investment and rollout decisions. And then lastly, on delivery. So in addition to improving productivity and boosting investor confidence in project durations and cost, modern construction methods should be introduced into the way that business is done. So business development and maybe introduction of new types of technology, not necessarily on the end product, but even on the process, in order to come up and to reach that final product. Maybe those can be considered by companies. So there, no. So as mentioned, that was a short overview. I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of our speakers and all of the healthy discussions that will ensue. Again, good morning and welcome to our event this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman Mike. You know, Mike was president of Phoenix last year. And when you become a Phoenix president, it's a 3-year commitment because after you become president, you get kicked up to chairman of the Phoenix Foundation, later on chairman of the Phoenix Academy. So, at this point, allow me to introduce our keynote speaker, Assistant Secretary Mylene Kapongkol, who has more than 30 years of experience in policy development, project management, involving development strategies and reforms in the power and renewable sectors, including the total electrification program of the country. Having been appointed as Department of Energy's Assistant Secretary, she's in charge mainly of overseeing the implementation and assessment of the Renewable Energy Act of 2008 and its implementing rules and regulations. She has also the support oversight functions on information technology services and laboratory testing analysis of energy products and services. Let us all welcome Assistant Secretary Mylene Kapongkol.
Kita ba ako? I'll make some adjustment. Good morning, everyone. Well, I would like to thank Phoenix, and the organizers of this forum for inviting the Department of Energy. It's very rare that specific solar topic is being focused on. So, sige. So let me begin. I think I have 15 minutes, so I'll be quick in some of the slides, but later on I can respond to questions that you may have. So hindi pa yata nakakabit. Okay na? Sige. To start off, the Department of Energy has this goal of transitioning to cleaner energy. And this started as early as 1990s when the Department of Energy was mandated to use indigenous and cleaner environment. And then follows EPIRA, which mandates that all power generation supplies should be coming from indigenous. Of course, to avoid the use of imported fuel. And then Renewable Energy Act encompasses the programs and policies towards renewable energy development in the country. So since we started the EPIRA and the RE Act, there have been a lot of policies issued to further the renewable energy development in the country. And in fact, our goal is to attain energy security and sustainable energy future for the Philippines. So you can see in the slides various major policies that we have promulgated, including the recently implementation of the Green Energy Auction Program, no, that actually has well received by the industry because it provides additional market aside from the feed-in tariff and some consumer-based programs. Now, the National Renewable Energy Plan, after 11 years, now we were able to update it and release it in 2020. So it encompasses the target of attaining 35% renewable energy share in the power generation mix. So this is the kilowatt hour, not the megawatt or the gigawatt. So, and likewise, we intend to increase the share of RE by 2040 to around 50%. Later, I'll show you the outlook, no, of our target based on the implementation of a major program in the Renewable Energy Act. So you can see in the slide that based on our simulation, the energy outlook for 2021 to 2040 would result to an increased capacity of about 52 gigawatt. Ito pa, this one. And this will be coming from a new installation, particularly geothermal, solar, and of course hydro, no, and wind. No, wind has been generating a lot of interest. No, so of course this is on top of the existing existing capacities currently we have in the power sector. Now, just to be specific, this is the power generation mix we have right now. And by 2040, from a mere 65% right now, as of end 2022, we are targeting by 2030 to around 45 for coal, no, which is a reduction. And by 2040, we intend to reduce it by 24%. So manggagaling po dyan yung increase from the renewable energy technologies and installation by way of implementing the various RE policy development mechanism. Now, the National Renewable Energy Program frameworks works on a whole of nation, whole of government approach. The DOE cannot do it alone. The investors cannot do it alone. We need the whole government agencies, particularly renewable energy encompasses or covers a lot of permittings from the different government agencies. So, you can see that the NREP framework covers what are the mandatory policies, meaning the DOE implements the policies in the RE law that are required to be purchased, no, such as renewable portfolio standards, and then we have the renewable energy market, among others. And then what are the transition enablers? So these are the things or the policies that will facilitate the entry of renewable energy. And then we're also working on use of productive uses of renewable energy, particularly in off-grid areas like we power water supply system, livelihood component of renewable energy that is being supplied as well with renewable energy electricity. So we have recently implemented and is currently implementing what we call support facility for RE. So this encompasses a lot of programs that aims to strengthen the use of RE, expand like powering fish ponds through RE, agriculture, powering the water supply system, no, among others. And then, of course, to continue to expand and make use of available renewable energy sources in the country, we're focusing on some resource-specific programs like the offshore wind. You may be aware that there has been a lot of interest internationally and locally for offshore wind development. And then we recently issued the Waste to Energy facility, no, that provides some policy guidelines and currently the Department of Energy is undertaking resource assessment na for potential. Why? Because waste to energy actually hits two birds in one stone. One is on the environment, solid waste management, and at the same time, they can contribute in the production and generation of electricity. And then, of course, geothermal. Geothermal sector has been sleeping for how many years now? From the second largest geothermal producer, we're now down at number 3. No, and since the Renewable Energy Act came into implementation, there have been a few renewable geothermal projects that have come online. So we are now doing a de-risking of the geothermal and some other renewable energy, emerging renewable energy technologies like floating solar, and later on I'll discuss some of this. Now, so these are the major policies that the Department of Energy, so I will not talk to them, discuss them one by one, but maybe later on you can ask me, no? But majority of the policies we're doing right now is the Green Energy Auction Program. You may be aware that recently the Department of Energy has launched the Green Energy Auction number 2, which covers around 11,600 megawatts of new renewable energy capacity for the next 3 years. And we have opened up the renewable energy development, particularly solar, wind, biomass, to foreign ownership at most 100%. No, they can own. Now, in terms of solar prospect for the Philippines, based on the Global Solar Atlas, the Philippines has about an average of 4.3 kilowatt per square meter of irradiation. So that would generate electricity, and you can see that elsewhere in the country, everywhere you can see there are solar panels that are being installed. And there are a lot of options for solar installation in the country. One is using rooftop as a generating facility. Right now, what we have as a big solar rooftop project is the one with Majestic, no? But unfortunately, there is an issue on the foreign ownership then. Later on, I'll discuss, we have a new policy on that. So one, and then another one is as a distributed energy resource. No, ERC recently issued resolution number 11, series of 2022, that provides some policies and support on how a distributed energy resources can contribute in the attainment of our renewable energy goals, particularly for solar. And then, of course, the net metering, and also there had been a lot of improvement in terms of processes, no, but there's still a concern, no, particularly with the local government, no. So iba-iba yung requirement nila eh. So when you go to Quezon City, you have a different requirement. When you go to Manila, so our aim is with the energy code we have with the Department of Interior and Local Government, we hope to address, no? We hope to come up with a harmonized requirement coming from the LGUs. And of course, we have what we call the pricing issue also, no? Because one of the concern of our solar developer is that, particularly for the net metering, they are paid on blended generation rate, not the real production rate now. But we have been discussing this with ERC, and we hope we can come out with a resolution on this. Of course, a consumer can own its own, can install and own and operate its own solar facilities, no? On its own as part of the energy efficiency program and demand side management as well. Now, for the regulatory requirements, so these are some of what we have gathered as the regulatory requirements for solar installation, and also and on different programs or business model. So I will no longer discuss this in the interest of time, but what is currently needed is a certificate of compliance with the energy as a self-generation facility or as a generation facilities. And of course, to ensure that the grid will be secured, there is a need for a system impact study or a distribution impact study. Yung issue nung rec meter installation, pinag-usapan pa namin with ERC because it might not be needed, ano, and it added cost to the installation. So those are the things that we're discussing also. And here is what we are now focusing on is the issuance of a policy on the expanded roof-mounted solar program. It encompasses 3 programs. One is as a generation facility using rooftop as venue for power generation. The other one is if you are a customer with your own RE facility, you can inject power to the grid during supply shortfall. So this is the reverse of ILP. You may recall that the interruptible load program, when there is supply shortfall in the grid, they will not withdraw power, and instead they will run their diesel generation facility. Here, what we are looking at under the supply contingency option is, while this is voluntary, but the customer will be afforded the opportunity to contribute to the need for additional electricity supply in the country during supply shortfall. And number 3 is using rooftop as a generation. So it's under the lease program. No, for example, one RE developer can lease a contiguously located rooftop and then put their own generation facility, inject power in the grid, now subject to the technical and commercial requirement and regulatory. And what we're now doing is a peer-to-peer energy trading, no? But initially we're looking at implementing this in a confined area like ecozone or a big subdivision, no? But I understand there are now mass housing that install 50 kilowatt or watt peak solar, ano, for their own generation. So here, this is intending to use as a blockchain technology or a similar that will enable the exchanges of power, no, generated from one unit to another, and maybe the excess can be sold to the grid, no? So these are the, and we have finished public consultation in Cagayan de Oro last week. This week we will be going to Clark, and then in Manila, and then in Visayas, in Cebu. So you can participate, and we invite you to participate in the public consultation so that all comments, your concern, or your recommendation on how to make this more feasible and technically viable, we need your input on that. So I guess this is the end of my presentation. Just before I close, so this is the vision that the Department of Energy. One is we hope to attain energy security, empowering the customer, have energy sustainable supply, resilient. Of course, we're usually visited by typhoons and earthquakes. So, and of course, a competitive energy sector. And these are the main programs to make that happen. No? So, on the RE side, we intend to achieve greater renewable energy share in the power generation mix. For the energy efficiency and conservation, at least there will be penetration and 5% energy savings on all products by 2040. energy electric vehicle, at least 10% penetration level by 2040, and of course adopting advanced and interoperable ICT in the energy sector. Of course, our task force, energy resilient, is actively looking into the resiliency programs, including climate proofing of all the energy facilities. So with that, thank you, and good morning, everyone.
How generally the program will run later. Assistant Secretary will be four speakers. After the messages, a question and answer forum will ensue, and our moderator for all of this, I will introduce later on, is Chito Oreta. And then after that, we will have a second section of our panel discussion where we will talk about people who have actually used renewable energy in their houses, in their businesses. So, dalawang phase to, no? So, to start off our very interesting morning, I would like first to introduce Mr. Jose Rafael Mendoza, who is known as PIN, who will talk about the current landscape of solar rooftops. He's the president and board member of the Philippine Solar and Storage Energy Alliance, and is currently working on developing Shell's renewable generation business in the Philippines. He has held leadership positions in Climate Capital Fund Manager for Climate Impact Venture Capital, CSEF, Aboitiz Power, and Solar Philippines. He has developer and investment experience in energy products such as solar, wind, energy efficient energy storage, and electric vehicles. He advocates technology adoption in sustainable energy and Bitcoin, and has been involved in drafting government policy on the national renewable energy. So, welcome, Jose Rafael P. Mendoza. Firstly, I'd like to thank the organizers for having us, and it's always a privilege to share what we're seeing in the industry. And I mistakenly put the title as rooftop solar for commercial industrial use, but I guess I'll put in some messages that's a bit more broad. And I think the brief is really to give a landscape overview of what we're seeing for rooftop solar particularly. So a bit of a background, as the slides try to come back on, PSEA, or the Philippine Solar and Storage Energy Alliance, is the industry association that includes members from developers, EPCs or contractors, installers of rooftop solar, as well as technology OEMs such as inverters, PV modules, and even investors and financial institutions. So what we hope to do at PSEA is to guide conversations and help the industry advocate for an improvement in sort of the ecosystem that rooftop solar plays in, right? It's a bit distorted. If someone could please make it just full screen, please. Also, PSEA is a member of what's called the APVIA, or the Asian Photovoltaic Industry Association, sort of like an Asian level industry association. So we're able to draw some insights from our peers in other countries. So we're trying to monitor some of the movements in markets outside the Philippines and see what we can learn from past mistakes, right? So background, I won't go into detail, but it's more about developer investment experience. I've done VC, I've done projects. I've been in solar since 2014, back when panels were like 10x the price now. So it's been a journey. And I did some real estate and financial services previously. So
let me start with a quick story. What you see here is a map of, well, a global map at night. And what you see is a strong correlation between electricity use at night, as a proxy is the light in these areas, with economic development. You would notice that areas like Japan, Taiwan, the developed countries in our area or region, are a lot more lit up. They're brighter, simply brighter at night. And in this right image, you may have a guess which two countries show a stark difference, right? Any guesses? Exactly. They only have one bright spot over here. That's probably the capital city where the Supreme Leader resides, right? But I mean, the point here is how and when we use power has a base layer effect on how people live. And I think that's sort of the undertone of Asek Mylene's talk earlier, right? The Department of Energy literally enables a lot of our economy and progress as a country. It's a bit dark. I could just share the slides later on, but it's the Philippines, and not surprisingly, NCR, Greater Manila area is the brightest spot. I think Meralco knows about what, 70-something% of national demand, and maybe some bright spots in Cebu, maybe Davao, right? But the point I wanted to share here is, energy, how we use it, is impacted by our geophysical constraints, mountains, terrains, and resources. But it's also really hard to do power in the Philippines because you can't interconnect all 7,000 islands with the same transmission backbone, right? And we are seeing that in the utility scale space of solar. And the hope is our 130 million people eventually enjoy the benefits of power because recently I was in Bangkok. They have a population of about 80 million people, but they have double their installed capacity of power generation as compared to us. So the low per capita consumption of electricity just shows you how starved in terms of energy usage Filipinos really are. A bit of a overview of how, sorry, we'll have to keep sort of bumping it consistently, but this is generally a national perspective how the Philippines uses electricity. This is like a 24-hour period where, as usually, most people are asleep between the hours of 3 to 6 a.m. They wake up, go to work at 10 a.m., hit our first peak. Most factories actually close their facilities for lunch break at 12 and then ramps up their consumption again at 2 p.m. And then a lot of people go home and they use more power during 6 to 8 p.m. So how people actually behave is reflected in our sort of power demand outlook. Yeah. I'll very briefly go through some slides that won't duplicate Asek Mylene's earlier points, but since the PRA was enacted, it unbundled the power sector, where there are distinct categories between generation, transmission, distribution, and what I guess more specific to this morning's agenda is the consumption base, right? You as end users, whether for your businesses and homes. This is snapshot last 2020, May 23. The only point here that probably wasn't covered yet is we're already seeing one, Western prices really shoot up, even with a secondary price cap in place. And two, we're dominantly about 80% natural gas and coal, with question marks on Malampaya, which is that yellow piece of the pie, right? So there has to be a big sort of thrust in promoting adoption of basically wind and solar. And why is that? On a power demand perspective, if we install a whole bunch of solar, we're able to accept that generation capacity because this is just a very rudimentary drawing of a solar curve when it produces electricity 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. We have a lot of solar potential because we use most of our electricity during the daytime. Again, Asek Mylene already highlighted this, but I just wanted to share that renewable energy is the big show. I think the DOE uses the acronym Big Show, not only because it's biomass, geothermal, solar, hydro, ocean, and wind, but I think for the next 10, 15 years, this is the biggest investment opportunity our country faces because we're going to put in tons of capital at work for infrastructure, not only in terms of the power lines, but also ports, roads, a lot of things that come with upgrading, I would say, a system that direly needs sort of the investment required to turn it around. And it's going to be a very different system moving forward. Having said that, we'll go through some fundamentals of what may be useful in understanding rooftop solar. The, I guess, simplest configuration you want to consider is what's called grid-tied solar. You're still tied to the grid, meaning in this configuration, you do not require batteries for your solar PV. You will install modules, inverters, and then mount it on your roof, and you use the output of the solar before you even draw from the grid. Why is this simple? Because one, you don't spend on batteries, which right now is still prohibited for most consumers, but also subject to agreements with your DU, you're able to net meter the excess production when you don't use the solar, right? As I alluded to earlier, there are options for that capacity. Either you use it all within your facility, you export it through net metering, and distributed energy resources has expanded sort of the capacity constraints for this, right? I think in that context, it's also important to show that there's a lot of cooperatives and distribution utilities in the Philippines. So different areas will have different considerations before they even go into solar. So similar to our islands, we're such a fragmented power system. We have over, I think now about 150 almost local utilities. So it's not just Meralco. For us here in Manila, there's Desire Electric, Davao Light, and 150 of them, right? Generation costs are passed through. So what Meralco is compensated for is the lines and poles that bring you the power, but it's generation companies outside the city typically that produce the kilowatt hours that you use for your consumption. And lastly, system-wide costs like system losses, taxes, other government expenditures are collected from all of us as a consumer base and then funneled to those specific requirements, right? And just, I guess, highlighting the differences in contexts, you will see as close or as nearby the Meralco franchise area, very different costs to consumers. Here I'm showing First Laguna Electric Cooperative, literally maybe an hour, 2 hours drive from where we are now, but having a very different rate structure. I think Meralco this month is probably closer to 6 pesos per kilowatt hour in generation, but in Laguna, they're at 9.8. For Clark, which is pretty nearby, and you could argue it's similar as a utility as Meralco, they're already pushing 8 pesos just on their Western exposure alone. So the point is, one, supply is very tight. We need a lot more generation capacity to come online, but there are very real concerns in how fast we can do sort of the gigawatt solars in the utility scale space, right? And two, you will also notice that there's a per kilowatt hour charge and there's a per kilowatt charge. Solar, if you put rooftop solar in your facilities, does not guarantee you reduce your per kilowatt or your peak demand, but it only reduces the volume of energy or kilowatt hours. So even if you put a lot of solar, there's no guarantee that your kilowatts are reduced, but the volume of metered quantity can be reduced by your solar facility, right? That's all because it's intermittent at any time of the month. Solar can decrease its peak capacity. So the key point here, if you could just bump it up a bit, it's an issue of load matching and right sizing. You want to understand with your facility managers or even at home how you actually use your solar. You want to maximize the size of your solar, not only the area of your roof, but also how much of your operations are requiring power during the daytime, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So just a case in point, I did a project just outside of Lipa. This is a 1.5 megawatt solar facility, grid tied, and it was a perfect, I would say, customer for rooftop solar because one, it was an outlet mall, so a lot of its operations was really daytime. It opens at 9 a.m., closes at 8 p.m. Food and beverage, a lot of shopping stalls. And secondly, rooftop area versus floor area, it was like 2 floors at maximum per building. So, the ratio of the roof size versus the height of the building means that there's no sort of I guess like a derivative order of like power consumption versus area, right? But also there was no far shading risk because Lipa isn't, no high rises yet. And the developer of the mall is the rooftop solar customer. And then it just, submeters the customers or locators. I believe Mike will touch on the specifics of business models for rooftop, right? But fundamentally, there's two ways to do it. One, you purchase it turnkey, meaning you buy the equipment to put together the solar PV. So it's really a capex decision for you, right? You contract out turnkey to a contractor where sign on dotted line, they do the procurement, they do the engineering, and then they install it for you. Typically with workmanship guarantees, right? So the decision point here is like how fast the payback would be for your investment into your facility. And the second model that's emerging is a finance model. Similarly, either you contract with a long-term financing, either to the form of a PPA or a lease or other deferred payment schemes, right? So the question then is, you compare your per kilowatt hour charge versus the savings. If it's lower than your savings, it's essentially free. So I'm sure Mike will go into more detail, right? So what are we seeing as a overall market outlook or the landscape, right? Not to beat a dead horse, but we really need more solar, and that's why we're one with the deal like promoting that we need as much capacity to come online unless we don't want brownouts. But the good thing here is, I mean, it's bad that we have high tariffs, but the good thing is it's not such a good investment opportunity, right? Because even if we do a lot of solar now, there's still more room for growth. I mentioned that low per capita energy consumption, right? There's no scenario in the next 20 years that the Philippines won't need more electricity. And you could argue we're not even using enough. We have favorable government policies, and industries that are being built now will be on top of each other. There will be a convergence of solutions that isn't limited to rooftop solar. There will be, like as I said, blockchains coming up. We've got internet connected devices. I believe in the next 15 years, this is going to be a very different world, similar to what the telco industry experienced in the 90s, right? From fixed broadband, large capex model to asset-light delivery models enabled by digitalization and the internet. Okay. I will skip to maybe a touch on here. I run a website as well. So one of the things we want to work on is enabling the consumer to first have sort of like a third-party view on research and like what you need to know to understand your switch to going solar, but also then connect you to credible installers and like just have a better view on what options are there, right? So we just launched earlier this year, but the hope is similar to when you buy a car, you want to go to autodeal.com.ph, you go to udo.com.ph as your first step to going to solar, right? But in the long run, what we hope to do here is get all that consumer or market dynamics in terms of data and then enable the EPC installers, the contractors, the financiers to make a better data-driven sort of conversation. So with that, I hope that piqued your interest. Thanks again for the invitation, and I'm looking forward to some of the questions later on. And if you would like to reach me via social media and have a deeper conversation, I'm happy to do that. So yeah, thank you. Morning.
It seems to be that the talks are getting very interesting. Okay. One speaker, he was younger, more here. It's a very good friend of mine, J.D. Guzman. Motors and Dynamo. He took business education for formal education. But through the years, he took the risk and dared to go beyond his educational degree. Diba, tagalasal ka? Oh, may kinaklaro ko lang. Oh. He pursued his passion for energy generation and various military technology. Today, he is directing a strong company in renewable energy projects, construction of rooftop and technical microgrid projects. There's over 300 rooftop projects using various solar technologies in the country. Now, let us all welcome Mike Negusman, President of Solaric Philippines. Mike will discuss the business model of solar rooftops. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Tony Boy, for the kind introduction. So, just a brief background. My wife and I, we own this company called Solaric. We do about maybe 6 rooftops a day, putting solar. We do a lot of commercial, industrial, entire eco zones, but our bread and butter is actually homes to put in solar because it has the best payback. So, did I press the wrong button? There. So this is a brief background what my presentation is going to be about. Actually, Ping covered a lot about it, and also Mylene. So there's some slides I'm just going to just breeze through. So what makes solar great in the Philippines? Just put it bluntly, we are an island nation known to produce mangoes, sugarcane, rice, crops which takes a lot of sun to produce a good crop. And when you put solar panels in our lovely climate, it produces 30 or 40% more energy than if it was in North America, Japan, Germany. Those are countries which have adopted renewables and they love it, but it works better in the Philippines because our electricity rates are really world class. So if you put in solar panels in it and you could lower your consumption, it makes your home or your business more environmentally sound. And in some cases, you won't have an electric bill anymore if you produce more than you consume. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's clean. You save money, but generally, it's the energy cost savings. When you put in solar panels on your roof, for every square meter, I just did the math a while ago, it's 3,000 pesos a year for every square meter of solarized rooftop. And your payback, depending if it's self-use or you export it, it's about 3.1 years to 6 years if you export a lot, if you're after that zero bill. I'll get to that later. So there's 3 models which are being specified as own, leased, or PPA. Now, which way you should do it? It's like ordering a Peking duck. You could get with your skin, with this way or that way. But generally, if you own the plant, you will invest more, but you also have a greater return. The cons is you have to make sure that you have a solid partner to do the maintenance, and also there's a capital equipment in putting in the solar plant. If you're okay with a return of 12 to 18% per year, go own your own solar plant. If you have access to cheap capital, or if you're putting a big factory and you already have a business loan for it, just add it in your construction cost because you're going to make it back. I think the going on rate right now, if you are to finance your own solar plant, is about 6 to 8% from the bank, but you'll produce 18 or 20% of the plant cost in energy production. So it's a slam dunk decision if you're planning a factory or even retrofitting an existing factory to put in solar. The other model is lease. Like you just basically lease the equipment. We will put in the solar plant for you, and then you pay a fixed rate for 15, 25 years. Whatever you pay for the lease rate is much less than the energy output of the solar plant. So this is if you are cash constrained or you don't want to put in any equity, you could go to the lease model. Another model is the PPA, where essentially we install solar on the factory roof. We put in a meter and we'll just charge a flat rate of whatever comes out of that meter. So In the 10 years of doing this, we've done it in 3 different ways, and I'll show some cost studies on it. So this is your rough cost on putting in solar. So for 100 kilowatt for your home, it's about 40 to 45 pesos per watt installed. As you go bigger, the cost goes down a bit because you have economies of scale. Like I don't have to warehouse the equipment; it could go straight to the site, and we just have guys hammering it out on a roof, putting in hundreds of kilowatts per week. So we could drive down the cost to about 35 pesos per watt was our last project. It was about 1.1 megawatt. We did it in about 120 days to put it in. The joke is the permitting is actually longer than actually installing the panels. In any of the cases, actually, like everything's said and done, we could put it in 4 to 5 months. For a home, it's maybe 3 days to put it in. But if you're to get a permit in the world-class city it's about 14 months. I'm not saying where it is, but yeah. So this is a factory. They make the packaging. I think they make Tetra Paks or something like that. Their load was 1.1, 1.2 megawatts. So we measured it. And the roof just so happened to fit 1 megawatt of solar panels. So when we placed it in, their consumption from the grid really plummeted. They're about 80% solar powered from the periods of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. They're using 80% of the power from the solar installation. So this is a self-use plant, and we actually had to put a limiter, meaning on Sundays we could easily be supplying the grid with 4 or 5 megawatt hours of energy, but no, we just turn it off. We dial it down. So hopefully with the DOE's plan, we could take out this limiter and create some revenue, or actually increase the energy supply of the national grid. But the current framework favors self-consumption. In the self-consumption model, if you're not using the grid power from 10 to 12 pesos per kilowatt hour, your return on investment is about 3.5 years. And this is another model. This is the PPA model. It's an entire ecozone, it's a Freeport area of Bataan. They need about 17 megawatts is their peak. They're contracted for 10 megawatts. So they have about 6 megawatts WESM exposure. And WESM has been very naughty lately. It's been with 15, 18 pesos per kilowatt hour peak day. So the Freeport area of Bataan was thankful that we put in 6.6 megawatt of solar, and we are offering at the fixed rate of about 6 pesos per kilowatt hour for the next 25 years. And actually the rate is going down as the years go on. So I think it's 6 pesos now, it'll be 5.95 the next year, 5.90 the year after that. So there's a 2% digression in the rate. So we're guaranteeing that our cost of power will be cheaper in the 25-year framework. And they asked us to put in, I think, about 12 or 14 buildings. And now they're asking for an additional expansion because they need more energy because the industries are picking up, because the economy is getting out of the pandemic. So we installed 6.6 megawatts during the pandemic. Our guys, when they went to that site, there was a lockdown. They didn't go home for about a year until the thing was done. So that's one of our bigger projects. And this is a factory which makes consumer goods like, I think, bleach and rubbing alcohol. So their load is about 1 megawatt. Then we put in 1 megawatt of solar. Actually, the roof here, the blank spot, you could fit in 1.5 megawatt of solar panels. And now the factory owner wants to enter the energy business. And Mike, can I be an IPP? I'll put in 1.5 megawatt of solar and just sell to the WESM. Said, yes, I will check with the DOE on that because the current framework is 100 kilowatts lang in net metering. So we need a different mechanism to inject that power. So hopefully we could figure out something also with Meralco to handle the wheeling and the distribution of that excess power. But it's substantial. So that's about 1.5 hectares of unused roof, and that could generate a lot of energy. I think it's about, it's probably 2 million pesos a month if we were to activate 1.5 megawatt and sell it on the WESM. So right now, this is the latest real estate asset is unshaded roof space. It's worth 3,000 pesos per square meter per year in energy production. So here are the ROI calculations on that rooftop. That was it was 38 pesos per watt for this installation, and their payback is about 3.1 years. And this is just self-consumption. It's already assuming on Sunday that we turn off the plant, so it's 3.1 years, which we do. It's kind of silly. On Sundays, we throttle down our production. And the payback after 25 years, it would have paid for itself like 6 or 7 times over. So it's a worthwhile capacity addition. It also provides that business that they could produce alcohol and bleach cheaper than their competitors because their cost of energy is no longer 10 to 12 pesos per kilowatt hour. It's more like 3 pesos or 4 pesos per kilowatt hour. So it's one of these big competitive advantages, these big boss moves for the future to be energy efficient and also competitive. So it's the payback calculation. So definitely within the 5th year, it's all gravy after that. And this is another case study. This is in it's a university in Nueva Ecija. And they wanted panels to withstand 250, 260 kph wind. So the engineering cost went up a bit. It was ballasted on top of a roof deck. In the solar rooftop world, this is one of the harder installs to do the ballasted system. So we had to put in 80 kilograms of ballast per solar module. And we can't penetrate the roof. So we basically put in this huge parking hump, which has U-bolts, and we bolt in the panel to that. So it's just held on by gravity. So that's one way we want to do it because we want to avoid leaks on the rooftop. So it was huge. It's about 1.1 megawatts. So this was, we were contracted by a large energy retailer to put it in. So they bundled it with their bulk generation plus solar. So I guess they could have more energy sources to contract out. So the payback for that installation is about 4.6 years. This is already in the high case of installation, but for your worst case in terms of cost, etc. So how does the Philippines work on adopting rooftop solar? Being a contractor for 10 years, I could say that the low-hanging fruit is to change some regulatory roadblocks. Like Mylene pointed out, it's like the REC meter. We have to put solar, then we have to put the wire outside. So there's a meter outside the house, then it goes back in. So essentially, it doubles the wiring. The purpose of the REC meter is to count the renewable portfolio standard requirements, but they are counting the gross production of the solar. It's not the amount of energy injected to the grid. So it's actually redundant because they could just use the net meter, which is required to export. So hopefully they'll fix that because that's driving the cost by about 40 to 80,000 pesos for a residential installation and as much as 1 million for a commercial installation. So that's one thing they could fix in. And the other one is the 100 kilowatt peak cap. Now this cap is really arbitrary. For a house, yeah, you could put in up to 100 kilowatt peak of solar. For a mall, you're only limited to 100 kilowatt peak if you want to sell back the thing. So it's like that one shoe, they try to fit it on everybody. So maybe they have to revisit this cap because as far as I know, if you put a coal power plant, there's no cap on how much you could inject to the grid, how much you could sell. But if it's solar on the rooftop, we are hamstrung by this 100 kilowatt peak cap. So it's kind of funny that during middle of the day in summer, we're in yellow and red alert, and I see this plant in McKinney with 1.1 megawatts of solar. We were limiting the production to 100 kilowatt. It is, it's just one of those things that could easily be fixed with a stroke of a pen. So that's one thing we could fix. And another one is the tax incentives. When we bring in solar panels, they are duty free. But if we to bring in the rails, the PV inverter, the 40% of the other stuff to make the system work, we have to pay duties and taxes on that. So maybe they could fix something in the tax code if it's renewable energy products to take out the duties on those items, or just the removal of VAT on renewable energy products. That will go a long way and make it more accessible. So those are the low-hanging fruit where we could see that if we could take it out, we could really enhance the growth of renewables. Oh, that's pretty much it. So where's the future of rooftop? So this is my house. I moved here in 2016. I placed 20 kilowatts on grid, 10 kilowatts off grid. And I just so happened to have lots of batteries because we did the military project. I was required to keep so many batteries as spare. So, okay, I'll just keep it in my house for the warranty period of 2 years. And after that, it's mine. Okay, this is like a sweet deal. And there, my bill has been zero ever since. So I produce more power than I consume. Even though they buy my power at half rate, okay, I will just sell double then of what they consume. So that's one way to do it. A silly problem, you solve it with engineering. In this case, you can make a net zero house, but I decide to make the zero bill house, which produces more power than it consumes. So I could help my neighbors comply with zero energy and all that. But I don't know. It might change this year because I'm changing my cars to electric already because they already fix the tax laws on bringing in an electric vehicle. So I'm taking delivery for an electric car this Friday. So it's going to be exciting. And maybe I might have a bill. I don't know. But my bill is about negative 260,000 because I was gone for about a year during the pandemic. I went to the States for just to get vaccinated, but it took me a year to get back. So when I came back, my bill was like negative 260 because I've been selling power even though I was gone. So that's where the future is headed. Well, it's I guess solar because it just makes financial sense. In other places like in California, you cannot build a house without solar panels on top of the roof. It's been law since 2022 that things have to be decarbonized, and hopefully the Philippines will catch up because actually in 2010 we were the first country to have net metering in Southeast Asia, etc. But now Thailand, Vietnam has caught up to us, and has exceeded us by a factor of 2. So the way I see it is just that we have to fix some of our regulation and also the mindset of where to get our energy because sourcing our energy from coal power is not sustainable. That's about it.
Thank you very much, Mike. From an association, from the perspective of a company, this, but all of this can't really take off without the financing side of it. So, let us welcome Morgan Competence as a leader is the leader of school competition support potential and sustainable development and distribution. Sustainable development and distribution oversees product management and technical assessment of climate sustainable development. So, Mark.
Hi. Next slide, please. All right. So when I was with the British Embassy, in 2008, we were lobbying for the feed-in tariffs. It was kind of crazy being in the Philippines, lobbying for feed-in tariffs for solar, because we were asking, I think, at 9 pesos at the time when coal was like 4. So we're like, why are we doing this? Is this not going to be another problem causing consumers to pay more for electricity when we're second to Japan at that time? So it was, as an economist, I was very pessimistic. I was like, are we sure? Is this going to be another one of those regulatory capture kind of situations wherein a foreign government is lobbying for a technology and which will eventually increase in prices? But fortunately, what we see is that things actually worked out. The prices of PVs fell, and this is actually now much more feasible. Next slide, please. So the main theme of my presentation is essentially that we'd like Sorry. All right. Forward is okay. So I should click. All right. So part of the presentation is that we're trying to I'm going to show that BPI is trying to convert green to gold. Essentially what we're seeing is that we're not going to pursue all this green stuff just for its own sake. It needs to be sustainable. For it to be sustainable, it needs to make business sense. So part of our argument is that we need to provide support to um, ensuring that environmental issues are addressed. Part of it is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's good to know that 51% of BPI's current loan portfolio is linked to SDGs. 51%. And then our power portfolio is here. 51% is renewable. And we've committed to not having any new coal financing since 2021. And we're going to zero that by 2032. And this is in line with the Paris Agreement. Right. Okay. So how serious are we at this? We in 2008, we provided the first support to this, which is supporting renewable energy investments for the SMEs. That was 1998. In 2020, we added another one, which is sustainable structured finance division, which essentially works on large corporations. So the first one is SME, because those are the ones that needed convincing. Most of the large corporations have their own engineers and third-party checkers who are also able to provide people the assurance that they need. So that's why the SMEs came first before the top corps. All right, this is a bit of a brag. This is what we won last year. So I'm not going to go through that. This is just regular programming for our sustainability office. So essentially what this says is we have our sustainability office, which is in charge of the policy work for BPI. You have two lending divisions. One is for SMEs. One is for Top Corp. All right, this is the bit that I lead. This is the one for SMEs. The reason why we're pushing on this one is because this is, I think, where we can add value. The reason why we think that we can add value is because these are the guys who can't afford those expensive engineers, to provide them the technical assurance that this is going to work, and then we're going to compute based on whatever borrowing that you will have, the payback period. So for example, even before we start doing the project, we're able to give you a sense of what the returns will be like. And in terms of that one, in terms of returns, I think the payback period for most of our projects is around 5 to 6, and the tenor is around 5, the tenor of the loan. In terms of how much does it cost to borrow money from us? Well, if you're one of the conglomerates, it's 70 bips plus BVAL. BVAL is around 5.7 now. So that more or less gives you 6.5. But do remember that the reason why it's 6.5 now is because Ukraine got invaded, commodity prices increased, inflation happened, and now we see BSP's policy rate, I think, is 6.25. So if you lend to the BSP at 5.75, that's sovereign lending. So we're lending to someone who's not sovereign, so that ends up being about 6.5. It could be higher for smaller entities because the BSP requires that banks lend on the basis of corporate risk. So we're looking at how much assets you have, if the level of security is going to be good. All right. So what have we done so far? We've released around, well, this is an underestimate because we've only started counting since 1998 for small and medium enterprises, and only 2020 for the large corporate. So the old Raslags wouldn't have been counted because we haven't started the division to count it. So we've provided 250 billion in loans so far. That's really small for a bank like BPI. So everyone will be laughing like, why only 250 billion? I'm like, you're a 1.5 trillion loan portfolio company. Why 252 over so many years? That's why. We've provided support to around 400 projects so far. We've provided 43 solar companies with financial support. That's really small because again, the slugs and the assets haven't been counted until 2020. That's just basic stuff. Here's the type of projects that we finance, similar to what Mike talked about. Normal stuff. This is what everyone in the banking sector does. It's capex and working capital. And again, this is where we add value. We provide free technical consultations. The guy who built the solar rooftop for ADB is the same guy that will go to your solar plant or your solar rooftop if it amounts to around 10 million pesos. So the same guy will provide you the same assurance in terms of the engineering work. And then that same guy will also compute the payback period, given the interest rate. So again, allow me to recap. The main point of VPI pushing for solar is because we see great value in it. I mean, I think Mike said his projects are like 3-5 years in payback. That's excellent, right? You get your money back in 3 to 5 years, including paying interest. And we think that the government has been very supportive in terms of the law. There are a few kinks, as Mike noted, but yeah, BPI currently is still looking for around 10 billion in loans just on sustainability, just on my side, not the top corp side, just the SME side. So that's how bullish we are. My quota this year is 10 billion in loans, and I think we're just at 1 billion. So if anyone's looking, we're here. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mark. Now, a lot of the takeaways is that we talk a lot about net metering. Okay, so let me call our next speaker to fully understand how net metering works. We would like to hear from our last speaker for this session. Let's all welcome Maria Cecilia Domingo, Vice President and Head, Enterprise and National Government Segment of Meralco.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting us here. So we're here to present Meralco Solutions to support the sustainable future for the nation. And just to clarify, we are fully supporting renewable energy and solar installation. And in fact, we already have our subsidiary Spectrum since 6 or 7 years ago. And in the past, Meralco's net income or the distribution utility business net income share is at 90 or 95%. But now it's down to, I think, 40 or 50%. You can ask Ma'am Betty, who's also a member of this group. So we're really pushing for our subsidiaries to expand and to increase so that the distribution utility business will really be smaller because of the heavy regulation and problems we are having in the distribution utility. And I'm glad that I'm the last speaker because most of my slides were discussed earlier by Asek, Maylene, Ting, and even Mike earlier. So just to so we commit to continuously innovate. So Meralco is no longer just a distribution utility. So we're an end-to-end energy solutions provider. We have, again, as I mentioned, a solar company, electric vehicle company, and energy services companies all into energy business to support the growing industry and moving into carbon neutrality. And by the way, I'd like to present some few facts about Meralco. So we're 120 years in service and 50% of the GDP in our franchise area, and we're serving only portions of the Calabar zone and Bulacan and Metro Manila. So we're not nationwide. So Most of the areas in the Philippines are served by the electric cooperatives. And then 55% of the Philippines electricity output is in our franchise area, and we're serving 7.6 million customers. And that franchise area is only 3% of the total Philippine area. But again, our share in the GDP and energy is 50 and 55% respectively. Okay, so we are the Meralco Enterprise. We're serving the large customers, just 24,000 of our enterprise and national government customers. And I'd like to acknowledge my team who is here. So in case you have detailed or more difficult questions, you can ask from them. So I'd like to introduce Bernice Garcia, our head of enterprise commercial. Yan, Bernice. Si Bezi, our lead for hospitality and financial institution. Yan, Bezi Mina. Nasa si Alan? Alan is there at the back. Yan. And then Tonichi, who is our lead for renewable energy. Yan. So we have people and office really focused on renewable energy. Okay, so aside from, again, the enterprise or private sector, we have the national government in our portfolio as our segment we are managing. And then, so overview, well, I will be just discussing two parts, the sustainable business, more on energy management and energy efficiency, and then the renewable energy solutions and net metering program. Okay, so for energy efficiency, I think it was mentioned earlier by Ping, the many laws that are here. So EENC, or Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act, is already here. And these are the items, major items that we need to do because we are also as customers and have to comply with this Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. So we need to have certified energy manager or energy conservation officer, energy management framework, and so on for us to comply and of course to save on electricity. So this is the energy management pyramid. So this is what we usually would like to discuss to our customers, that before moving into renewable energy, it might be good to start with the base, which is energy assessment. So this is, as said, that the bedrock of all energy management priorities. Because what if you put your solar or contracted with a retail electricity supplier, for example, for 100 megawatt, and then after doing all of this energy efficiency and conservation, you're down to, let's say, 50 kilowatts only. So you will be tied to, at the tier 4 on energy programs, you will be tied to a contract that you cannot be able to use. And then the good thing for the renewable energy and excess, you can sell to the grid or to Meralco. But again, we encourage that we do from the energy assessment. So how do we do the energy assessment? Of course, we start with your energy consumption and demand. So this is your Meralco bill. So zero bill for Mike earlier. So this is an example of a company. So you can see from your bill that there's a summary of your consumption. So it says there that 5% increase in your kilowatt hour consumption versus your previous bill. So you may need to see what part or which part of your business caused that increase. And then there's the actual demand versus your minimum billing demand, that if you are attaining the minimum that you contracted out. And of course, if you will do energy efficiency, energy conservation, that might go down. And of course, you need to adjust or update your contract. And then power factor is also another efficiency measure. So for Meralco, we give a discount for power factor above 85% and penalty for below 85%. So starting point in each assessment is, of course, your bill. And then for energy conservation, this is largely based on behavioral and operational practices with no cost needed that you can do. So again, this is behavioral. So you just have to be mindful of the usage and purchase of your appliances and equipment. We have our Meralco Online. There's a Meralco calculator that you can estimate the consumption of your, if you will be buying additional equipment or appliances or aircon. So you can manage your consumption. And then there are some energy conservation measures that you can do, again, without any cost, for example, is that putting your air conditioning unit in room. So there are ways and more efficient method of providing you the cooling that you need. So you can find this also in our website. Okay, so for energy efficiency, this is now purchasing and installing energy efficient equipment, and of course your processes and on improving. So some of the more common usually implemented, of course, is the replacement of CFL to LED. So we have there, based on our Meralco Power Lab, you can save 5,000 per month per 100 bulbs. Again, this is for 24-hour usage. So these are easy way for us to save. And then installation of motion sensor lights for your not so frequently visited areas in your emergency exits, washroom, storage areas. Improvement of pumps and motors. So using VFD or variable speed drives, for example, for the escalators, maybe you have seen those escalators that stop when no one's using, and then it will run when somebody steps on the stair. Okay, so for energy program, this is the programs offered by the utility to reduce energy cost. But before going that, I'd like to share, as discussed by Ping earlier, this is your Meralco bill, and as you can see, most of these are pass-through charges, and the distribution charge, which is just 9% of your bill, goes to Meralco, and all the rest are pass-through. And the most important portion and the biggest is the generation charge. And this is the portion or the amount that you can contract out through retail electricity supplier, renewable energy electricity supplier. Even this is the amount that we use in paying you for the excess energy that you export to Meralco. Okay. So this is an example of the peak of peak. So earlier, I think si Ping also discussed about the peak of peak rate. So we have this for our captive customers, meaning your full supply is through Meralco. And because I'll be discussing the contestable customers. So this is the available rate option for you. And you can see that the rate during off peak is almost half of that in the peak rate. So if you are really using during night, especially for residential customers, you can benefit a lot from these peak of peak rates. This is by enrollment. You cannot just practice it on your own and then you will have this. So this is by enrollment because we have replacement of meter and other things that we do in the system for us to do this to your house or even to your business. Again, for contestable customers, you have two options: under our COA, or retail competition, and open access. So this is for 500 kilowatts and above. So you can source for for that generation portion of your bill there are many, more than 10 or 20 retail electricity suppliers that can offer different rates, or you can negotiate for rates on that. And then on the right side is the green energy option program. This is for 100 kilowatts and above. So you can also negotiate for lower or even all or pure green energy supply for your business. So end-to-end energy efficiency services. So we have our Meralco Power Academy, who's offering energy management courses for them to be certified as energy manager or energy conservation officer. And we also have MServe, who do energy and facility audit. So they are also an energy services company. So actually we're working with ASEC Mylene because we learned from DOE that most of the electric cooperatives are not yet implementing the net metering after how many years of the law. And even as mentioned earlier by, I think, Mike, the local government unit where we will get our certificate of final electrical inspection, most of them do not know yet what is net metering or all of these things. So we're working on educating and training all of them. Okay, so this is just an example of an end-to-end solutions provider through our team. So we work on energy efficiency, on how they will be able to comply to the EENC or Energy Efficiency and Conservation Law. We do contract facility updating. Again, because of your energy conservation or energy efficiency, your demand will be moving or declining. So we need to update your minimum demand and your contract. And there's also power quality audit, preventive maintenance, and then you can choose from POP if you're a captive customer, or if you're a contestable customer, or COA or Green Energy Option Program. So this is just an example of one of our customers with 2.5 million savings per month after implementing all of those activities and programs to their company. So this is a multi-level building. Ayaw na. Diyan na lang. Ayun, yan. So tier 5, that's the last on the pyramid. So it's using alternative sources of energy. So solar, wind, biomass. Yan. Okay, so how solar installation benefit you? I think I won't discuss this because this has been discussed extensively earlier. So we now have 3 options for renewable energy. Again, the net metering, but it's limited to 100 kilowatts. And you can export your excess electricity to the grid, to Meralco. And then you have zero export or self-generating facilities. So this is for your own use. And again, for your own consumption. And then we have a new one, which is implemented just this year, the distributed energy resource. This is from 100 kilowatts up to 1 megawatt or 1,000 kilowatts. So you can have that big solar installation for your own use, and then the excess can also be exported to the grid. Okay, so what are the benefits and risks of your solar installation? I think you know all of them. So it has to be safe, stable, and it won't affect all other customers in the grid. And then you can have savings. And then the risk, of course, is from the distribution utility. In times of maintenance, you need to turn it off because it might be producing or exporting power to our grid that might put our linemen or engineers at risk. And then I'd like to emphasize this last portion, higher electric bill from non-replacement of unidirectional meters. So all of our meters in Meralco are unidirectional, meaning it measures the energy whether coming in or going out of your meter. So if you will be installing a solar panel and then you didn't inform Meralco, you are at risk of even having higher consumption or higher registration in your bill. So you need to inform Meralco because we will be replacing your unidirectional meter with bidirectional meter. So it will measure what's coming in and going out of your meter. Okay, so this is an example of a hotel in Manila that was able to, or that is actually enjoying 12 million pesos in savings in a year for a 1.2 megawatt solar system. Okay, so for net metering, again, this was discussed earlier by Ping, but this is how it works. And I know you already know how this is working. So from consumer, you will now be prosumer because you're producing your own power and at the same time consuming it. So this is the formula on how we bill. And Mike showed earlier his zero bill. So, or even with credits from Meralco because his export is even higher than what he is consuming. Okay, so based on our study, so these are the potential savings for 2 kilowatt, 3 kilowatt, and 5 kilowatt solar installations. And again, this is average and based on different types of monthly electric bills. Okay, so for our Meralco net metering statistics, yeah, as of year end 2022, we have 6,000, almost 7,000 of net metering customers and 40 megawatt in capacity. So majority, 96% are residential customers because again of the limit to 100 kilowatts. And it's been increasing, and our average processing time improved as well, down to 8 days, while the ERC prescribed average processing time of 20 days. So for Meralco, we're doing it at 8 days. Again, this is on Meralco time, and it excludes the customer time of getting the permits or electrical inspection from the local government units. So for Meralco, we started our own net metering in our Meralco compound, 6.16 kilowatts last June 13. So, and we also had our first net metering customer in 2013. So, and we in Meralco have the largest number of net metering customers in the country, 78% of total and 87% of Luzon. Okay, so these are some of the things that will be added to your system once you do solar PV installation. Of course, you have your solar panel, you have the DC AC inverter, you have to, because the output of the solar is DC or direct current, and you have to convert it to AC so you can export it to Meralco, to the grid, because our electricity in Meralco is AC or alternating current. And then you have to put your own service equipment, and then these additional components, the disconnect device from the customer side. This is a way for us to know that it's on or off, or not exporting power to the grid, especially during maintenance of our crew. And then the bidirectional meter that we need to install, so it measures both power coming in and going out. And then the rec meter was discussed already a while ago and might be removed as per ASEC, Mylene. And then who can apply? Of course, it's limited to 100 kilowatts, and then with good credit standing, and then all types of all customers, whether new or existing customers. And then this is the application process. So you have to apply to your nearest Meralco Business Center, or even our relationship manager. So I introduced you earlier my team, so you can approach them and ask for their contact so they can help you out in applying. So we also encourage that even before you buy or you contract out, even at the planning stage, you already inform us of your plan to install solar PV, so that we can go through the evaluation process, especially the DIS or distribution impact study. So we need to do that to ensure that the electricity grid is stable, even if you will be installing new system in your house or in your office. Okay, so if the DIS result or distribution impact study will require additional distribution facilities, and then we will do a distribution asset study. We may need to install additional poles or wires or even transformers to accommodate your solar installation. And then we will have to coordinate with you and your solar contractors for this. And then, of course, third is inspection. We will inspect your solar PV facility and compliance to requirements. So once approved, we will, and of course, all documentary requirements are approved, we will install the bidirectional meter and even the rec meter if it will still be required. And then lastly, and then fourth, on the completion. So again, documentary requirements and payments, and then COC from Energy Regulatory Commission, and then lastly on energization and commissioning. So we do a test. It's just a brief test on final testing before the commissioning of your solar PV. Okay, so these are the requirements, and mostly are documentary in nature, but there are technical, of course, the identification requirements. These are the usual KYC, know your customer requirements, and then the net metering application, and then plan parameters for form. These are in bold because these are the very immediate requirements that we need to have in Meralco so that we can do the distribution impact study. The 345 amended net metering agreement, fixed asset boundary document, and COC can come in later. So the first two are the most important for us to start our processing. And then you need the electrical plan, you need the certification of your solar PV facility from your solar contractor. And then the certificate of final electrical inspection, this is issued by the local government unit, the building official, and as mentioned earlier, this is what's taking so long. So we're also working with the building officials on how to make this faster. And then these are the fees for ERC. And then there's difference in meter cost payment because again, the bidirectional meter is more expensive than the usual unidirectional meter that we have. Okay, so these are just some of our advocacies in advancing net metering. So we have here engagement with IIEE, with ERC, and even with ACME. ACME is the Association of Municipal Engineers, the one issuing the CFEI. And then we're working with LGUs also for uniform process as mentioned by ASEC Maylene. So we will be doing that together with DOE and then advocate for uniform standards on net metering, streamline the process, and collaborate on certifications, and then overall enhancing the customer experience. Okay, so that's it. Thank you, and God bless us all.
Thank you very much, Cecil. Now I'm going to turn you over to our moderator. And so our moderator for the panel discussion is Luis Juan Chico Oreta, who is the 2015 CFO of the Year Award, the Chairman Emeritus of the Environment Committee. So Chito.
Didn't realize I have a title, Chairman Emeritus. Oh my God. Okay. May I ask the five experts to please come to the front and be peppered with questions. Be ready, because there was so much exchange of comments and whatnot. I was listening to all of you, by the way. I just pretended to be listening to them here, but I was listening to the discussions at the back. Should be one more. Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, there's supposed to be 5. Oh, there's 5. Okay. No, I'm not going to sit. I'm just going to stand here. Secretary Kapungkol had very good ASEC. Well, of course, when in doubt, promote, they say. Yeah. So I'll stick to secretary. Very good insights. Talked about our national renewable energy program, setting a target of 35%. And a final by 2035 and 50% by 2040. And in the case of solar energy, we're looking at generating 2,660 megawatts by 2025 and 27,000 in 2040. That's for those of you who look at statistics, that's a CAGR of 16.75% over 15 years. So maybe I'll ask, let me start the questions by asking Assistant Secretary Maylene. What do you see as the roadblocks to increasing the adoption? I mean, these are ambitious plans. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Well, as you know, the Department of Energy has recently issued a spate of new RE policies. So, and usually the industry, for example, have their contracts already. And then there are, of course, areas that cannot be immediately installed with solar, particularly agriculture or idle lands, because of the need to convert them into for use now by RE. So that's why the Department of Energy, so as not to compete with the agriculture sector, is looking at roof-mounted solar installation. Now there are we have around 140 distribution utilities. Most of them are contracted with coal. So we cannot easily undo whatever has been contracted. But the good thing is the renewable portfolio standards, which is a mandatory program, will eventually erase or address the issue of contracting by our mandated participants. As you can see in the simulation we need around 52 gigawatt. No? So ERC will soon issue the rules governing the recovery and on the implementation of the RPS for distribution utilities. So we continue, and I think having a centralized generation like the feed-in tariff system, the green energy auction program, wherein it is shared pro rata among the grid users. So that eventually will address also some contracts that has been entered into by our DUs. Thank you.
Thank you, Asik. Any questions from the group, please? Let me direct this question to Ping. Or Ping and Mike, no? Both of you talked about the various business models, no? In fact, it was an educational experience for me. I mean, you have the owned, leased, PPA. I didn't realize it had gotten into that, no? Tell us what you think need to be done to increase adoption. I mean, is it cost? Talk to us about the cost of the panels. Where is that going? And what, if any, needs better understanding on the part of the customer? Can you talk to those issues and what you're facing? Yeah.
Sure. I think let me share from a consumer standpoint first. Recall that I said that we run this website, trying to educate the consumer, right? So on that part, we're trying to sort of make the consumer smarter. Like Mike said, if you're making maybe 16 to 20% on your investment, it's a slam dunk investment, right? But not a lot of people sort of the mindset has moved to that place. But also, what we're encountering in the data, one, there's this website where we want to actually copy in the US. It's called EnergySage.com, which performs the same thing, right? Market education. 10% of their website traffic comes from the Philippines. So it means the Philippines is starved for knowledge, right? Especially outside Metro Manila, where the rates are much higher. But also, we're trying to rethink our model of like sort of consumer education, because not everyone speaks the same language, not everyone appreciates the same sort of selling points. There's also a responsibility to dumb down the product, to make it a crisper sort of rich. And I guess it's a process to get to that, right?
Mike?
Yeah, I totally agree with Ping. The first hurdle is what do you say, energy literacy, like knowing where your energy comes from, how to make tipid, and how solar works or renewable energy works. It's not for everyone. It normally, when we put in solar panels, they are very financially stable individuals or corporations. Unfortunately, that doesn't quite describe the majority of our population, because we're not cash rich. We're not like Singapore or any of the advanced countries. It's basically when we put into factories and eco parks, they are very much in the black. They have idle money. They could invest into technologies that makes them more efficient. Another roadblock in putting it in is, like the 100 kilowatt roadblock they have there on net metering. So that dissuades large industrial customers or anyone who has an electric bill in excess of 130,000 pesos. The 100 kilowatt peak barrier is pretty solid. Another one is basically permitting, like to put solar in a rooftop. Let's say if I were to do it in Makati, average 8 months to 14 months to put it in. It used to be 2 weeks. And as the years go by, instead of the process being quicker, it's getting slower. So hopefully the DOE will take a lead on that and streamlining it. The US DOE actually had this Solar ABCs program where they submit the permitting through the Department of Energy and it's approved within a week or two. So it's a centralized process. They are like the certified installers who have the necessary licenses to install solar. They take a picture of the site, then upload it, then they get a QR code, and the local utilities put in the net meter. So there are many ways to streamline the process. There just has to be solid political will behind it to reduce it, like a firm deadline, because the road of decarbonization, like the Philippines signed up, is a very ambitious goal for 30-40% RE content. But the truth of the matter is, instead of moving forward, a lot of our generation is derived from coal, and we're now paying the price for it because the prices of coal has tripled in the past year. So those are the things we're looking at, but the economic fundamentals are there. It's cheaper to go renewable than to stick to the old ways of generating power. Kumbaga, the old way of doing it, centralized generation, is like, it's like a fax machine and we already have the internet. So it's just a matter of time. The transition is going to go faster and faster, which we've seen with net metering. Before, 200, 300 installations lang in the past, first 4 years of net metering. And now we're 6,600. Last year, I think it was only 4,000. So it's increasing. But I wish it was a bit faster, but it's, I guess, awareness.
I guess for those of us who, well, I'm a recovering banker for those of you who don't know me, in my past life. So, the term that we use is disintermediation, and we're seeing here, I mean, I came away with the impression that, technology is, in this case, solar technologies is, disintermediating or unbundling, as you say, the value system, as it were, in the space, no. But talk to us. I was looking at the presentation of Cecile Domingo of Meralco, and I was shocked to see that, but maybe not shocked, no, where he had like 7,000 customers.
7.6
sorry,
million
7,000
customers.
net metering.
6,600.
Right.
Yeah, 6,000.
Nearly 7. So yeah, I just rounded up. 7,000 net metering customers, no?
Yeah.
So out of what, 7 million customers, no?
Customers, yeah.
So really tiny.
Yeah.
And so I'm and if I relate that to us, and I suppose, hey, I'm not a net metering customer, so I don't know who else is here, no, but probably very few, no. And so and if you were to, for those of us who live in houses, if you're going to switch to solar, what I mean, we see all the nice things, no, but what are the downsides to somebody going solar, other than the high capex cost? I mean, is there maintenance if you were to go with an owned model?
You'll have more aircon maintenance. The aircon just never stops,
Okay.
On some key rooms, I actually have to have 2 aircons because one will just break because they don't turn it off anymore. So that's one thing we've found out, that we tend to use energy more in that respect. And yeah, it also has its costs, like, but pretty much that's the only downside I could think of. So.
Yeah, question from Ed.
Yes.
You're a residential customer who gets a solaric solar panel, enjoy peak and off peak the net metering.
Yes, you can do both. Yeah, and we actually encourage it. That's why there's one presentation that there's POP and then solar also.
Yes, please.
From sugar client, let's say, borrow money from BPI, uses BPI shares as collateral, gets my build in solar, and probably make money on the side as well. Package that thing out.
I think the collateral is acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cheapest is 6.5.
6.5.
Yeah.
Oh wow. We should talk. To like lots of root
The lending bank's shares as collateral with the lending bank, kasi magiging buyback yan kung ano or something. Oo. Sabi Video na lang. Sorry, Tony Boy, yeah, please.
My question is to Assistant Secretary Kumpul. What was the logical reason for putting the capex at 100 kilowatts? And is the DOE making any moves to lift that capex? I'm sorry, that limit, the 100 kilowatt?
Yeah, actually, sir, it's in the Renewable Energy Act. The distributed energy generation is defined as up to 100 kilowatt only.
So what was the logic behind that?
Unfortunately, I'm not aware when the RE Act was promulgated or enacted into law. That's why the Department of Energy is working on different programs like the JEOP, 100 kilowatt and above, and then the roof-mounted solar program will address that. So for the net metering, maybe I think it's a matter of testing for the distribution utility, particularly those that are smaller in size, like electric cooperatives.
Would that be, does it take Congress to leave the?
Yes, sir. Considering it's a law, so we cannot amend it by circular only. So it has to be amending the Renewable Energy Act or somebody or a document or an act that will amend the definition of distributed energy generation. Thank you.
Yes, Ed.
There are countries in Europe, I think it's Norway, Sweden, that have set a goal of 100% renewable energy. So no more fossil burn. Ours is 50%. I think they've set milestones for every 5 years. So what they have to achieve in order to hit that 100%. Do we have the same program? Like, how to remove those obstacles that Mike mentioned?
Yes, sir. Actually, what we're trying to do is to calibrate the entry of renewable and the exit of conventional fuel, because we cannot. Doing renewable energy would take time. No, so we have the LNG, the natural gas industry. We have renewable energy, and slowly, as soon as our indigenous supply of electricity will come in, slowly we will do away with the conventional. But the thing is, the Department of Energy is gearing towards energy security, meeting the demand for electricity today until we meet our goals. So hindi po ganun kadali na to switch to 100% RE. No? At the end of the day, we need stable supply of electricity.
Yeah, Jen, you have a question?
Yes, good morning, Dan. Well, and by the way, I'm one of the 6,665. And aside from the benefits of getting back money from what we produce, I'm linking this to the point raised by Asset, the phone call on the use of blockchain.
Blockchain asset.
Yeah, because I'm aware that there is an organization called SolarCoin.org that incentivizes generators, especially home installations, who register their installations with them, and they give the equivalent of, I think, 5 US cents per megawatt hour produced in an Ethereum equivalent cryptocurrency. Now, because you already mentioned you're going to blockchain, is there a move to incentivize those who convert to solar to get something similar to register?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Actually, what we're now developing is the framework. So blockchain or an equivalent facility will be able to understand fully and develop as we move into the policy once we promulgate. But currently, there are carbon tradings and the renewable energy certificate platform that consumers can sell in that IREC. Now, IREC is one of the platforms that buys renewable energy certificate from generators, even from the consumers. So right now, sir, we're still at that point, but at least we are now introducing the program that will enable a consumer to be more empowered and to be able to recover at least and benefit from what they have invested.
That'll be the next one here. Yes.
Maybe to add, I think the incentives you're right. The blockchain is a solution to the coordination problem of energy, which you can match demand and supply instantaneously. Like it's no one electricity is fungible, so when a power plant somewhere produces the kilowatt hours, someone literally has to use it in that instant, right? So blockchain facilitates the information on top of it. Now the question is, and I think what the DOE is trying to do is put a policy framework to contain that. But there's also a flip side to that, right? If costs drive are expected to go down because solar is a manufacturing constraint, not a resource constraint, will come to a point, maybe in the next 5-10 years, that it's cheap enough that people want to do it. It's economics, right? Now the question is, but also to care enough to do it. So that's a function of both the crypto or like incentive side and then the cost side, but also make the government sort of supportive or like, you know, have everyone buy into a system that enables that. And the last thing I say to that point is, similar to how we use the internet, we don't really know the back end. Like we don't have enough time to understand the engineering parts. And that's what I alluded to earlier. Right? Eventually, some strong consumer brand will take the retail front and just don't worry about it. We'll figure out the back end and just pay us a service. And probably it's not an energy player. Maybe it's some startup or maybe a telco even that is able to package all of these sort of regulatory arbitrage, engineering benefits into a consumer pitch, right? So I think that's what excites me for like maybe 10 years. Yeah.
I guess it's one of the things that DOE and ERC had to figure out is the renewable energy credits. Like if you have a solar in your home, let's say your solar plant produced 10 megawatt hours a year, is how you monetize that, how you could record it, and how you could sell it to the utilities because they'll need those RECs to comply with the renewable portfolio standard. So that's one thing we talked about the REC meter. It's counting the wrong thing. It should be based on export and whatever the solar plant self-consumed, that's the REC owned by the consumer. So hopefully there'll be a policy framework to put a monetary value in that to incentivize growth. So it'll be palakihan ng RECs. Then they could sell that to other DUs or co-ops which do not have enough renewable energy. And you know, the framework has to be there because I think if the economics are there and it's a slam dunk decision, then renewable energy will take off on its own merit.
Oh, yeah, Omi. And then after Omi, si Erwin. Yeah.
This is aggressive a little bit. Kind of home solar, maybe a little bit bigger in terms of the between type of solar wind. We used to do a lot of financing, both green and I used to call myself a green and brown lender. And the problem usually is the transmission lines that connect the site to Transco or maybe even in the future to distribution utilities disregarding Transco. That usually takes so much time and a lot of roadblocks. If that's something we just
Actually, sir, is one of the most, if not the major concerns we're having right now because we have issued around 1,000 service contract. And for any service contract or any projects to get moving, you need a system impact study from NGCP. And it takes time. It takes more than a year for the day one of the system impact study. So this is where the Department of Energy is trying to address jointly with Transco on how we can expedite the conduct of system impact study, like a possibility of introducing a new mechanism that will allow a third party transmission provider to do particularly for those critical infrastructure like offshore wind, floating solar. So these are some of the new policy thoughts that we're looking into. But unfortunately, we still have to to address currently, no? But NGCP, based on the meetings we have with them, promised to expedite the conduct of the system impact study. As to the distribution utility, not much of a problem.
Actually, for Meralco po, we already have, I think, more than 10 of embedded generator connected to our grid. So instead of connecting to NGCP, if the Meralco facilities are nearer, so they can connect to us. So, and even recently, we have a 75 megawatts of our own Meralco power gen solar installation in Pinugay, Baras, that we connected to our system. So any renewable energy generator or what we call embedded generator can connect to NGCP or even to Meralco for that matter. Yeah, less also extension of poles and lines.
Erwin?
And our DRS is just 60 days, not 1 year, 60 days.
How do we convince them to jump to solar now that, for example, the capital component that can be addressed by, let's say, Basec, for example. But if you ask them, for example, 10 years ago, the payback was like 10 years, 12 years. Now it's 3 years. But next year, it's only 2 years. A year from 2 years from now, 1 year now. So how do we convince them to jump to daily passage and when's the right time?
Well, I wish there's a financial product for that because the joke is I could get financing for a 60-inch plasma TV for a much lesser rate than putting solar panels on the rooftop and having the bank finance it because they're just using the credit card and the interest rates are it's pretty atrocious. So if we could come up with a product with an interest rate about maybe 6 to 8%, then I think it'll be a slam dunk deal. Because every hour in my Facebook, people says, meron kayo terms, pwede installment, pwede 6 gives. But once we install, we demand full payment, and that's all said and done within a month or two. We're already installed in the system. So I think that's one thing where the banks could offer financing for it, especially now because the rate for export is pretty okay. It's around 7 peso 30. About 2 years ago, it's only 3 pesos. So it's more bankable now just to size the system to what the home consumes. It's before it was really hard to figure out how much solar to put in a house. You have to know the daytime load. Now it's just you just put whatever the roof fits, and that's about it.
Yeah, for retail,
Yeah.
we're working it out. Because sorry, we can't send the engineer who put the ADB solar panels to any house who apply for like this. I think the minimum amount for us is 10 million. So if someone's borrowing 10 mil, I mean, where to go? But anything below 10 mil, we're still trying to create the credit card equivalent of swipe it and then we'll put it up your house. We're working it out because the problem is your houses are different. I mean, the roof is different. How are we supposed to create a solution for different things? So what we're trying to sort out is, well, first off, how big are your rooftops? And then we're creating 5 or 10 prototypes that are cookie cutter. We're just gonna sign it off and then pili ka sa 10, we'll get it to your house, swipe mo sa card. And also we need to make sure that whoever are the accredited people who are going to be listed as the people who will put it up will not end up burning your house. Because, di ba? I mean, pag tinipid mo yung mga yung palabas at papasok nung into the panels, your house will burn. And we don't want to be responsible for that, being the guy selling you the product. So those are the things that we're trying to like, where do we put the risk between individual contracts between the credit card company owned by BPI and then whoever's going to install it? Mamaya, something happens, balik sa amin. And then, so that's the thing.
We have to make the last word on this because we have to move to another set, no?
Sure, and from the industry association, we I guess well, there's discussion of like promoting certification or something that builds consumer trust. on the supply side, right? We hope to, like, for example, they put stickers on your roof, or like there's an energy efficiency sort of mark. Would love to work with the government to formalize that part. That's sort of the dumbing down of the product, right? Because we need to outsource the trusting. We can't have individual people sort of like KYC and the installer and then the bank does it. It has to be sort of more like a air cover for the consumer. But I think the last part to say to that is, I think price will push people inevitably to it. I would think that even if net metering is at 7,000, there's probably like 2x of that not net metering, but already installing. So I think data plays a big part of like getting more information, whether from the consumer or the installers. What exactly are we working on here, right? How many rooftops? How many have solar? And we'll share it publicly soon. We're working with a data science group in the industry association. We're going to use sort of like AI, machine learning, visually looking at satellite imagery to count that, right? And we'll share more in the near future.
Thank you. We have to end it. Sorry, Ed. I mean, there's another set naman you can ask questions and but with that we'll have to end our session, and our thanks go to Mylene, Team Mendoza of Solar Alliance, Mike Solaric, Mark Canlas of BPI, and Cecil Domingo of Meralco. Thank you very much, panel.
I'll sit down this time. I think I got tired.
People will be sitting down this time. They got tired because of age. Okay, as I call the name, please go up to the stage. The Phoenix ICT community. Then we'll talk about the experience of solar panels. So Ben has installed solar panels at his home. We also have Derek Lloyd. Side solar panel user in the manufacturing plant in the US. So we have a strategy of projects around on the behalf of study time. In using panels at the malls and structures. So Tito, back to you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay. The panel's right in front of here, so they're going to talk to you about their war stories. Hopefully, don't just talk to us about the good stuff. No, we've had the good stuff the whole morning. I want to hear the bad stuff and the horror stories. But we all come away from this even thinking clearly about the topic, no? Because I have a hard time believing, it's paradise all the way, no? So let's start with Bong. Bong, why don't you talk to us about, give us a minute, talk to us about your experience, your journey. Because you're the retail guy, you're talking about your retail experience. Then we'll go to Derek, who's going to talk about their own journey as well, and then Ramon for the commercial side, real estate side. No,
yeah. Well, good afternoon. I've installed my solar system at home 7 years ago. Okay, and I'm an IT guy, so I like technology. So when I was told about the solar system, I'm part of the environment committee, so I want to be able to contribute. So basically, 3 things. Number 1, it's good for the environment. That's why I did it. Number 2, If you look at the return on investment back then, 6 to 6.5 years, okay? And the cost per kilowatt is about 80,000 pesos. So putting a 5 kVA at home would cost me roughly about 400,000 with an ROI of 6.5. But again, sabi nga nila, di ba? If you're looking at an interest rate of an ROI of 6.5 years, an interest rate of about 12%, if you have extra money in the bank, let's say you have 400,000, how much it will earn you in 5 to 6 years. So to me, it was a no-brainer to put it in. And I'm happy with the system. And what's the bad stuff? Tama yung sabi ni Mike. Since I installed my solar system, I have to change my 5 horsepower plus standing AC, which is kind of expensive because I just run it whole day at 24 degrees to cool the place. So almost the whole day is running. So normally a typical AC lasts you about 10 years. After 7 years, it comes out. So I have to fork out another 180,000 to replace my 5 horsepower AC. And then a month later, my 2.5 in the kitchen comes out. I have to replace it. So I guess that's the bad stuff because you end up using more of your ACs to cool the place. And maintenance, there's practically zero maintenance except that during weekends I have to go on the roof and every 3-6 months I have to clean the solar panels with the accumulate dusts and the efficiency goes down. So basically that's my experience and very happy with it. The other downside is since your place is always cool and the air conditioning is practically free during the daytime, most of my get together in my neighborhood associations is always in my place. So magastos. Sabi nila, kinabang yung aircon eh.
Derek, talk to us about the PHILEC journey. Why did you guys do this? And yeah, I mean, talk to us about that.
Thank you, Chito. It's the right thing to do. CO2 emission reduction wise. So we did it for that, not really for the savings or anything. It's part of the journey of our parent company to reduce our carbon emission and eventually go to net zero. But on the downside, sorry, before I go into that, we're a small to medium-sized company. We installed initially a 393 peak kilowatt rooftop solar, grid tied, and then eventually that was in 2021, and then in 2023 we added a 135 kilowatt peak, so all in all 500 plus kilowatt peak. What we like about it is, if anything, you want stability of price. So we contracted a 25-year fixed price per kilowatt hour for both systems. So no need to worry about escalation of blended utility price. So that's good for us because you already know beforehand what your prices are in terms of the input cost to your manufacturing cost. So that to us is great. The bad side, I guess, is on the execution side. Most of, if not all of the components are imported. So it takes time to import, especially the specialized inverters. Experience-wise, it's very easy to install once everything is in. But you know that they import this because not all systems are equal. So they cannot store inverters that may not be used for some projects. So they probably will install for mass production, but not for specialized industrial facilities. So it takes time, 3 months, 4 months. While the panels are easy, they could have inventory for that. So it takes time, not because it's difficult to install, but rather it's difficult to import sometimes. So, but I guess as projects would actually, the number of projects would increase, then eventually that would be easier done. But the other side that actually will not be spoken about is the employees that actually join our company. We're not the highest paying company in Santo Tomas, Batangas, but people like it, or engineers or young millennials like it, that, you know, they're going to work for a company that's 100% renewable. They like it that the company they're joining is doing the right things. So in fact, that's some of the questions they ask. What's your program in greening the environment? What's your program in reduction of CO2? And if they like what they hear, even if you're not the highest paying company, they actually join you. And they actually stay longer because of this. Even during the difficult times, they actually did not leave because they think that they actually joined the right company. So that's the plus side. More than the emission, more than the savings. We're basically saving about $1 million a year. So pretty small for your calculations, but it's, I guess, doing the right thing that makes a big difference.
Thank you, Derek. And for Robinson's Land, Ramon Rivero, please talk to us about why did you do this, and are you able to pass on the savings to your locators and to your tenants and to the end customers? Tell us, please.
Thank you, Chito, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Just a quick 1-minute introduction. My name is Ramon from Robinson's Land. We're a real estate developer. We operate around 280 properties in the country, also in China. And that includes a mixed portfolio of hotels, residential condominiums, our subdivisions, our malls, our offices, and our recently logistics and facilities. We're also part of the JG Summit conglomerate, which operates Cebu Pacific, Robinson's Retail, Robinson's Bank, and URC. So I think the $1 million question is, did the solar panel investments really pay off for us? So I think the quick answer there, before jumping to the details, is yes. No, I heard Chito say that he wanted to hear more on the war stories that we had, but ultimately it wasn't an easy journey, obviously. But ultimately, I think my message to everyone is it did pay off. So I'll give more details on that in a short while. So we started our journey 2015. Our first solar panel installation was in Pampanga, Star Mills. Actually, we kind of boast of having the biggest solar installation there. We have 10,000 panels, over 1.7 hectares of rooftop solar installation. We've spent so far to date around 1.8 billion on solar installation, and we've garnered a total savings of 1.2. So this is a continuous installation year on year. What prompted us to do it? Well, I heard my colleagues say that it was for the environment, reducing carbon footprint, but admittedly for us, it was really a pull from our investors. So our majority of our big investors, they were looking for this element from us. It was a requirement. It was no longer an option for us to just progress and show growth through profit. And as guided by our principles, well, I'm trying to instill this in the organization up to now. It's the 3 Ps, the profit, people, and planet, right? So this was really pressure from outside, from investors from the Western countries. They were requiring us to have all of these sustainability credentials, abided by frameworks such as the GRI, TCFD, and what have you, right? That was the genesis of it, no? But of course, it was so hard to sell, sustainability projects just for the soft metrics, I would call it, no? So I guess our journey was to make this really happen. We had to make sure we had a strong financial case, and so far okay naman siya. The projected payback was around 7 years, 8 years. Honestly, with our learning curve, we think we're going to hit 9 to 10 years. We've recovered 80% of our cost dating back to 2015, and it's doing well naman. Now I want to talk about quickly lang on the war story. So I think one of the biggest challenge for Robinsons was when we installed solar panels in our malls, is that we had to talk to suppliers who hasn't been doing this for the past 10 or 20 years, right? It's quite a new. I'm not sure, right, if there are suppliers out there who have been doing this for over 20 or 30 years. I'm sure there are, right? But the ones we talked to were relatively new in the market. So we talked to 5 and 6 suppliers to install into different areas of the region. And I think the quick challenge that I wanted to share there was, along the way, I think 3 of them started to, wean out and nawala na sila sa track nila of really pursuing solar. So the credibility part is one challenge I really want to share with the group, no? And what did that lead us to do? Our management decided to build in-house expertise, because no matter how many consultants you have or experts out there, having own knowledge beats everything. So we had to go through the learning curve. And if there's one thing I want to share it with everyone, get consultants, but also learn it and build in-house expertise. 2 more challenges. The second one is the roof design. So I think there was a comment earlier about that. Cookie cutter, trying our best to create, cookie cutters to implement solar rooftop panels. The reality is, even though specifications will fit, yung quality ng roofs namin, since it was built like 15, 20 years ago, it has to be, well, we learned it the hard way. We had to replace it eventually. Yung una pinapatong lang namin, and then 2 or 3 years afterwards, our biggest problems are the leaks. So that increased our maintenance costs, our repair costs. We had to hire engineers to make sure that the angles are correct, structural integrity is there, etc., etc. So I think it's not as it sounds straightforward, but it's really hard to implement given the different structural plans of our properties. Third and last, I would say it is the buy-in from management. No, so there's a lot of pressure on me kasi ito yung pinopromote kong payback and savings. So when cost increase, supplies increase, consultation increases, it's so hard to defend it compared to, let's say, a normal business unit. No, it's a fairly new segment in our group. Well, not really new since 2015, but we still have a lot of things to prove to the group to make sure our payback commitments are met. So that's it for Robinsons Land.
I have to thank our group in front, for their candor. I think it's important that we all know what it is we're getting into. Not just the good stuff, but the other stuff that comes with it. Maybe at this point we can open the floor to questions from our guests, from the attendees. Yes, sir.
The difference between panels from China or inverters from Korea. So which is actually the best choice for these things?
Yeah, it does matter, because if you don't know the supplier, typically a panel would last 10, 15, 20 years. But there are definitely cheaper panels that would last you only 5 years. The efficiency would start to go down. So that's one. On the inverter side, yes. Typical life of an inverter, easily 5 to 10 years. But if you get the wrong inverter, maybe in 3 years, you end up replacing it. So, but the most important thing is you have to work with an established and credible installer, because you don't want to get your house burned.
Like Solaric, yeah. You get a 15% discount.
Yeah, actually, our EPC is Solaric through another energy company. But Bong is right, it matters. But in our case, if you're in a PPA, it really doesn't matter, because it's the responsibility of the installer. So if it comes out, then they don't have any revenue for that. So it's up to you, depending on the model, that the business model that you're gonna enroll into.
Yeah, absolutely. It does matter 100%. I think we experienced that firsthand. The first two suppliers we talked to, we were guaranteed 25 years warranty for our solar panels. On the 8th year, it broke for our first 5, right? So we had to move into a new one, and two of them we're talking to right now are okay so far. So absolutely, do your homework. Make sure your clauses in your contracts are protect both parties, and yeah, just make sure you do due diligence on these suppliers.
Any other questions? I have a question to Derek and Ramon. Do you the switch to solar energy, do you find that it gives you a competitive edge vis-a-vis your getting new contracts, and in the case of Robinson's Land, does it help in your leasing? I mean, how has the shift to renewable energy helped your business?
Yes, it helped a lot. A lot of companies that we're working with, a lot of our customers are into greening their supply chain or greening the services. So once you actually have this as like you're running on 100% renewable, your products are green products, it helps. We've recently are exporting transformers to the United States, and when we talk to our customers, that's the first question they actually ask: what's your sustainability program? What's your ESG program? And of the 17 SDGs, which are you implementing? So it helps. Of course, at the end of the day, it's still your product and services that matters. But if you have these credentials, it's a good thing that you have it.
I'll answer in 2 ways. The first one, right now, it's no longer a competitive advantage, right? It's a minimum requirement. So our offices, we have our office segments. We have 30 offices in the country. Our tenants, our BPOs, Teleperformance, Infosys, they require that we have some sort of energy reduction through solar installation. Normally, when these clients lease with us, they lease the whole half of the building or a third of the building. They won't get into a contract with you. They won't even entertain you if you don't have sustainability credentials. So it is a key requirement to move forward to survive in our business. The second way I'd like to answer, you mentioned it, the millennials nowadays, I don't know, is it the Gen Z after the millennials? When they apply and they know about your sustainability efforts, initiatives, that is a huge plus to them. It really is. I'm not pulling your leg. I think they feel more responsible now to take care of the planet. I mean, it's no longer sustainable just to keep on getting profit, but one day, like for example, here's a very clear example: Typhoon Odette. We have a huge development in Cebu. If you've heard about UHRI or NewStar, the NewStar Hotel there. When Typhoon Odette happened, we were building our Crown Jewel Hotel in Cebu. It ruined our building construction completely. So why am I saying this? It also hits us from a climate change perspective, right? So I can't even emphasize any further how important all of these mitigating efforts we're doing to address climate change.
Questions from the group? Help me out here, guys. I'm the only one asking questions.
Cheat.
I have a question.
Okay. Oh, yes, please.
Okay, show of hands. Who are members of the 6,600 net metering customers of Meralco? Applicant. Konti pa lang. Okay, so when you leave this event, there's no reason for you not to talk to Mike.
I think that
metering group that's here, I think. From sorry, go ahead.
the project as well qualifies for the requirements of the Energy Efficiency Act. So if you're required to do energy conservation and efficiency, having it qualifies for that. So that's going to be strictly implemented soon. And by having this, it also qualifies for that. So hit two birds with one stone.
Why don't I ask the three of you one question? What's next in your renewable energy journey? What's the next step for you? What's
I have a 5K in my rooftop, but I'm still paying Meralco. My goal is to be like Mike, 0. So I'll bump it up to 10 and 15. And that's one. I'm already energy efficient in my house, everything LEDs, but I put more LEDs and more ACs and more wine chillers and freezers. So, but I'm not worried because I'm using solar. So hopefully that's my next step. Bumped it from 5 to maybe 15, and hopefully I get that 0 thing, just like what Mike did in his house.
That's a good question, Chito. We're installing EV charging stations. We already have one AC charger, 7 kilowatts, so slow charging. We're putting in a 60 kilowatt DC fast charger. We're actually building at least 3 charging stations to accommodate 8 vehicles, EV vehicles. Our shuttle buses are already EV. We have a fleet of EV vehicles. We're working with our customers to change our tracking vehicles into eventually EV. We're trying one now. We're also installing a lot of digital monitoring systems and sensors in our factory to actually not just monitor energy consumption, but even lights, the environment. We have that, and we're also building a new factory, and of course, as opposed to the other one, we're putting set the solar powers, solar roof. So, and then putting in rain harvesting, water and the like. So and then improving one major load really is the air conditioning load, the cooling load. So we're putting in better windows and panels so that at the onset you reduce and heat at the cooling load. So that's what we're doing for the future.
So for Robinson's Land, I think we're on that train to net zero carbon by 2050. It's a huge ambition. Our competitors, Ayala Land, Mega World, Philinvest are also on that direction, no? So to be net zero by 2050, we really have to have a solid plan to get there that's grounded in data, right? I want to share that our biggest challenge as a company is that when we laid down our growth plan for the next 10 years, we overlaid that with our carbon emission year on year. We will never catch up to net zero. We are producing more carbon than we are removing. If you overlay those two plans, right? So what does that mean? Well, number one of our speakers said that you need to assess and then you need to reduce through LED, through conservation acts. The third one is through technology like solar. The fourth one is really through, right? And right now, we understand that no matter how many technologies we put into our company, even though we do 100% renewable, which is another challenge, because when you look out there in the retail market, everything's limited, right? And agawan, when you say agawan, all companies are lobbying to get that retail renewable energy. So I think I can't say it's the last for now, but we need to offset our carbon footprint. And that's where we buy carbon credits, right? So some individuals that have extra, maybe you can lend some to Robinson's Land, so we can offset some of our carbon. But kidding aside, yes, we need to eventually partner with companies that provide carbon credits, right? Or even international companies. What's the next step for us? For now, in the next 2 to 3 years, we just really need to establish our greenhouse accounting. Get the right baseline up to scope 3, not up to scope 4. I think that's a little bit too ambitious. After getting the right accounting, set targets to install, continuous installing. Right now, we're targeting 3 to 4 malls per year. I also want to share this. All our new properties will have some sort of solar panel installation in our properties. Unchallenged are the buildings that were built back in the 90s, like Robinson's Galleria. The architectural plan of that building is so out of sync with what's efficient nowadays. Like, we're trying to LEED certified, EDGE certify our buildings, pero I think this was also brought up in the Davos Convention about clean energy. How do you now transform your old buildings into energy efficient buildings? And it probably requires triple the capex of our solar, right? So yun yung challenge. We don't know what to do with the rest of our 70% buildings and properties for now, right? So the third step is really to engage the organization. I mean, it goes without saying, you can implement projects, get savings, but if you don't inculcate that culture of sustainability or having that sense of responsibility to each and everyone, it will only get, your efforts will only get so much. So yeah, we're still in this journey, but I think management recognizes that they need to put, champions in place to progress with this. I think us, the private sector, together with the government, are learning hand in hand how to make this successful for the whole country and, maybe even for the whole world. And I guess what I want to say last is sustainability right now is everyone's responsibility. So I think this is a collective effort we're trying to do, for everyone's sake.
Thanks very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for this session. So let me thank our panel, Bong Paloma, Derek Degay, and Ramon Rivero. Let's all give them a round of applause.
Thank you very much. And thank you to all our speakers and panelists. Before we go to the presentation of our certificates of appreciation, I'd like to call in Attorney Ebot Tan of Accra Law Office of Counsel. He's the liaison director for the Environment Committee to give his closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Tony Boy. And pleasant good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Mr. Michael Arcatami Guarin, the chairman of the Phoenix Foundation, and the rest of the members of the Board of Trustees of the Phoenix Foundation, I would like to thank the following. Firstly, our very supportive and generous sponsor, the One Meralco Foundation. Secondly, our very impressive set of speakers and resource persons, ASEC Mylene Capongcal of the Department of Energy, Mr. Jose Rafael Ping Mendoza, the president of the Philippine Solar and Storage Energy Alliance, Mr. Miguel Mike de Guzman, president of Solaric Corporation, Mr. Mark Emmanuel Canlas, VP Sustainable Development Finance Division of BPI, Ms. Maria Cecilia or Cecil Domingo, VP and Enterprise and National Government Head, Meralco. Thirdly, I'd like to also thank our panelists, Mr. Josefino Bong Paloma, Ascent Microtech, Mr. Derek Roy Degay of the First Philippine Electric Corporation, Mr. Ramon Rivero of the Robinson's Land Corporation. I would also like to say a very big thank you to Ms. Elizabeth or Beth Cornell, who unfortunately is not with us today, the chairperson of the Phoenix Foundation's Environment Committee, and the rest of the very hardworking committee members, especially Chito Reta, Marivic Sugapong, Erwin Avante, Omi Aptunchay, and Tony Boyong Shako, who put in extra time and effort to help organize and roll out this event. And of course, thank you to our Phoenix Secretariat, especially Mike, Alex, Lynn, Mylene, and Mayan. Without them, it would have been very, very difficult to bring this event to you. I'm sure that all of us learned a lot today about the state of the development of solar power and energy and how it affects each of our lives and our country and economy. But most of all, I would like to thank all of you for sharing your time with us this morning. Please join us again at the Environment Committee's upcoming activities, programs, and events. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
At this time, I'd like to call in Erwin Avante and also Mike Gray, appreciation to our panelists and speakers. Also in the Environment Committee, we not only talk about it, we also walk the talk. I just recently bought a hybrid car, so to make myself greener. Sa EV, wala pang masyadong charging station. So you go to the next best one, which is a hybrid car. Okay.
Thank you, Tony Boy. So on behalf of the Phoenix Research and Development Foundation Incorporated, we would like to present our certificate of appreciation to all of our speakers and participants. So first one, certificate of appreciation to ASIC Mylene C. Kapungkol, Madam, in recognition of her generosity in sharing her valuable time, knowledge, and insights as our keynote speaker during the Sustainability Forum entitled Solar Evolution, Generate, Conserve, Contribute, given this 13th day of May 2023, signed by the Phoenix Foundation Chair Mike Guarin. And then we call on our second speaker, Mr. Jose Rafael Mendoza, for our certificate of appreciation. Thank you, Pen, for gracing our event. And for our distinguished speaker, may I call on Mr. Miguel Mike de Guzman to receive his certificate of appreciation from Phoenix Foundation. And then for our next speaker, again, to receive the certificate of appreciation, may I call on Mr. Mark Emmanuel Canlas. Thank you for gracing our event, Mark. Thank you. Last but not the least, among our speakers will be from Meralco, Maria Cecilia M. Domingo. Thank you very much, Ms. Domingo. And then to our panelists, I would like to present again our certificate of appreciation to Mr. Derek Roy B. Degay.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
And then to our very own, Mr. Bong Paloma, Josefino M. Paloma. Thank you very much, Bong. And then our also one of our panelists, Mr. Ramon Rivero, can you come here, please? Thank you for your participation. Thank you. Okay, and then we're telling the guest speakers and panelists that for each of them, Phoenix Foundation actually planted trees on their behalf. So again, I guess that's it. So thank you, everyone. Have a nice afternoon and see you in our general membership meeting. Thank you.